Okay, I'll start over again. So like I said, my name is Sammy Pearson. I'm the director of the Coos Bay Public Library, and I really appreciate everyone being here today. We started the process of a new library in 2014. And if I am vaguely doing my math correctly, that should be 8 years. Am I right? That we really started, the city really started in earnest working on a new library project. And so here we are today. So I am going to have and I do have, if you'd like to see our walk through the process of how the current site was chosen, I do have these handouts in the back because we could spend an entire hour on this alone. But in respect of everyone's time, I will leave the handouts up there. But now I'd like to have the architecture team introduce themselves and we'll get started. Thank you.
Great. I'm Laura Klinger with Hacker Architects, and I'm an architect with a specialty in library design. And I started working in 2016 with Sammy on the programming and planning for the library. So just really excited to be here today to show you the design work we've been doing.
Great. And I'm David Keltner. I'm a design architect, and I'll be presenting the library to you today, along with Charlie Brucker, our landscape architect, who's going to talk about the landscape design and how it knits into the park.
And hi, my name is Nick, a design assist at Hacker. Really get to do a lot of fun behind the scenes stuff. Some of the renderings or images that you're going to see today. Really excited. I've been having a blast on this project, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
He's the magician behind the curtain.
Yes, and technical whiz. So this afternoon, what we're going to do is give you probably about a half-hour presentation on the background of the design work and where it is at right now. And then we'll take any questions. Also, if you have a question during the presentation, you can raise your hand if it's burning, or you can wait till after presentation's done. And then after we take some questions and answers, we'll kind of mill around. We'll be here to answer one-on-one questions if you feel more comfortable asking that way. Any questions that you see on the boards, and we'd love some input on stickies on the boards, which David will explain when he's done the presentation. So, and for those if there's anyone on Zoom too, if you have questions, you can raise your hand or write your question in chat and Nick will read it out. So for the presentation part, if you go to the next, our agenda, we're going to first touch on the schedule for the project, where we're at, then talk about project goals and priorities, and then go back a little bit in time. We've had 2 community meetings already, so we want to kind of recap what we've heard during the process. And then David's going to talk about design inspiration and considerations for the project, and then show you the design updates. And then Charlie is going to talk about landscape design. Next.
Quick question. Sure. Are you a local firm, or
we're out of Portland? So this is the schedule, lots of stuff on here, but essentially we started the project in December, and we've been working. We had a first phase that was vision and programming and site analysis. And we had one public outreach event during that time. And that was really to gather opinions on the 3 site options within the park, which one the community was favoring. And then with that, we kicked off schematic design. We had another public outreach in late February, where we were gathering input more on some of the design layouts on the specific site that was chosen. And now today, we're almost at the end of schematic design. So really pretty far along, and showing you some real what the space is going to look like and feel like, and space shape and materiality. And then we're going to complete the schematic design set of drawings, which then gets a cost estimate put to it. And we'll do some more updates to the renderings and imagery. And we'll have another event probably in early June where we show any refinements from now. Any questions on the schedule? Okay, great. And then I'm calling this part of the work phase 1 of the project, and that ends now. And then the project will go on hold until it gets funded. So you probably all know it's going on the May bond ballot. So hopefully that passes, and then there'll be another 8 to 12 months of design work left, and multiple more points for community input. So what you see today is pretty far along, but it's not fully designed. There's still lots of opportunity for it to change and to be influenced from what you are seeing and what you want. And then probably a year plus of construction after that. And next, and okay, so project goals. These were the goals that the city and library gave us when we started the project, and I think it's just worth going over them. We're hoping that what you see today is meeting these goals. So economical solutions to well-documented needs for programming space, collection growth, integration of technology, specific spaces for children, teens, public meeting space. We definitely wanted to complement the existing and adjacent developments, connect the new facility to the beautiful open space of the park around it and the trails. Incorporating sustainability into design, but in really cost-effective ways that is going to save the city and the library money for long-term energy costs. And then recognizing and incorporating the climate, natural landscape, character, and values of Coos Bay. This is really important to us in all our projects, is to learn about your community and try and embed that into the design. And David will be really talking more about that later. And then lastly, that the design the library so it could serve as a center of information in a disaster situation. And with that, I think I'm turning it over to you.
Great, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just because some of you might be here for the first time, we are going to provide a little bit of overview, and then we're going to run you through kind of where the design is today. The little red dot represents the site out at John Toppin's Park, which is partway between Empire and downtown Coos Bay. And it is surrounded by a lot of other kind of social services, excuse me, and commercial hotspots. So there's a lot of activity actually around this part of overall Coos Bay, which made it a really great location. And we began, as Laura mentioned, by looking at John Toppin's Park and where within the park the building might sit. And we brought multiple options to a community meeting. And there was one that got all the little hearts on it. That was the favorite location. And that was one that we came to call the Ridge site. And that's what you'll see us presenting from today. And people really felt that it had the greatest opportunity to build on infrastructure that is already out there without disturbing what's really great about the park now, along with lots of other really positive potentials. This is just an image we wanted to show of the little blue area shows where the new building sits relative to the whole park. As you can see, it's kind of out down on the little kind of bottom corner edge of it. I think that was one of the big reasons that the community seemed to appreciate that location within the park, is because it would disturb the overall experience as little as possible. But also one of the things that came to light that people really appreciated about the library going out here was when the 911 call center became a part of the project. It now means that there will be 24/7 presence out at the park, which will not only benefit kind of safety and everything and use of the park, but also having a library out there, there will be people there kind of in the library all day, every day.
And the roof will be blue.
And the roof will not be blue unless you all decide you want it blue, and then we can make it blue. From that site selection, we then came back again and brought multiple options for how you could organize the library on that site, and different ways that you could take the different programs that Laura mentioned, the kid space, the adult space, the meeting spaces, and organize those on the site. Because it is a slope site, there are kind of two levels that you can approach. And so it was about how we would organize that. And the favorite one on the right, that was favored in our last community meeting, was to put all of the kind of consolidate a lot of the meeting spaces on one level, and then have the vast majority of all the rest of the library on a singular level. And that's what you'll be seeing today. So, and some of you have been to all these community meetings. This will be familiar for those that are new. We just wanted to share that we've really been thinking a lot about the history, culture of Coos Bay and of the climate, and how to really make this building and this library really feel like it's part of the community. Everything from looking at, we got to go and tour actually with the Coquille tribe, the plank houses on their land. We've done research into kind of understanding the history, the more recent history in this land. and all the kind of industry that came with that. The kind of specific qualities, we learned a lot through talking to all of you about the specific qualities of the climate here and how that works, where the wind comes from, you know, when it rains, when it's sunny. And then also kind of coming full circle back to the idea of culture being tied to the land. Even still today, Coos Bay is very intimately connected to land through industry and now even through recreation and well-being. So in a way, locating this library that is a real symbol of all of you coming together in a place that has such opportunity to connect to nature and the land is just really powerful. So we wanted to find ways to really, these are images from the park, find ways that when you're in the library, you can actually, the way that the library opens out to the park actually elevates your awareness of it and your connection to nature, whether it's the lake or the forest or the wetlands. Thinking about how we can use the building, there is slope on the site, and how the building could be also very economical in kind of dealing with the site itself and getting a roof shape and volumes of the building that kind of step down the site and work with that slope site to be economical. One of the things that we came to understand is that the time of year when people want to be outside in Coos Bay, during that time of year, like in the summer, the winds are predominantly out of the north. They kind of shift around. And so we really thought about, and you'll see in the design, how the building can actually help shelter you to create outdoor spaces that are protected from that wind. And then also get the entries to work in ways that they're also sheltered that way. Not just from the wind, but also from the rain and providing cover to people when they arrive. We looked at all the kind of buildings throughout kind of, that people have been making here as long as there have been people here, all the way up to the shape of the buildings that have been made more recently, that are kind of pragmatic and like really responding to the climate and the environment with these really simple kind of gable, we call them gable forms, but roofs that are very simple and light in terms of just shedding rain and keeping you dry and protected. And then also integrating with the land. When we toured the plank houses, we were really impressed with that kind of integration of the actual earth and land with the shape of the building. And so we tried to form the building to do something similar. And then really how the building, and these are some of the buildings we've designed in Oregon that really preserve and improve the park, can improve and preserve the park experience and experience of nature. Whether it's the High Desert Museum, a library we did in Portland, or at Black Butte, all buildings in very different climates than yours, but all kind of dealing with how to preserve and protect the experience of the park around them and make it better. We also, in looking at the structure for the building, we're looking for ways to tie it to local and kind of regional materials, but also industry. There's a mass timber, we call it mass timber. It's a glue lam timber. It's like a kind of structure that there's one of the only factories in all of the United States is in Riddle, Oregon, just kind of down the road, that makes some of the most high-tech advanced wood products that we've been using in a lot of our buildings. And so looking for ways to incorporate that into the structure and create a really rich and warm environment that also is really economical. It's really repetitive, that can create really broad open spaces that allow the library into the future to have lots of flexibility. Indoor-outdoor connections, whether it's just views, to actually creating big doors that can open so you can go outdoors and connect even meeting rooms to the outside, and then creating moments that really celebrate the landscape and maybe raise your awareness of it. Regional materials and timeless patterns for how we deploy those. So looking at the outside of the building, what it's made of, we were inspired again by the kind of plank houses that we toured. And then also looking at how expressing the structure of the building can actually create really beautiful play of light and shadow in the way that these buildings do. And these are just little vignettes from we'll fly you through the whole building and show you what the experience is. And these are just little vignettes that you'll see in that fly through. And then also thinking about how we can tie to kind of create these moments that kind of tie to some of the more almost like the pier-like structures and the trestles and the kind of history of industry in this place. And then the look and feel for the inside. We haven't done this yet. We're kind of just on the cusp of starting to research how we can, bring furniture and color and fabric and materials to the inside. But our goal is to make it really warm and welcoming, but also exciting and engaging. So with all that, now I'll present the design. Thanks for the build-up. Thanks for your patience. Site access, really big deal. Early on, when we were looking at multiple sites, we explored all these different ways of kind of getting into the site. And we landed on Hull Street as the ideal access. It has problems right now. It's really scary when you are trying to pull out and turn on to Newmark. So we've been working with a traffic engineer that has looked at this, and they have some really good recommendations for how to make that a lot safer. And basically, it's going to include creating a turn lane there that doesn't exist right now. That'll be marked and striped and be a lot. It'll provide you a little area of refuge. Yes.
No, sorry. I drive Leclerc and Newmark, all the time. And I know when I'm coming down Newmark to turn on Leclerc, people in back of me, they didn't put their foot to the floor to get through that light, to get up that. So, you might have to have a light or something, because it gets scary sometimes.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you for that question.
Big trucks with, they just hit it. Trying to pass everybody to get into single lane, but then.
Oh, yeah, that's where it comes together.
Yeah,
Does it?
right.
That's right. Yeah, it kind of
yeah.
narrows it next down. So, another question?
Yeah, I know Hall Street, and I've looked at it a lot, but there's no sidewalks there. In fact, there's no sidewalk into the whole park. If you want to get into the park walking, you have to walk on the street with cars, or a wheelchair with cars, or whatever you're in. I ride my bike down there, and there's no bike lane, so there's no bike easy way into the place. It's miserable, actually.
Yeah.
And the city they seem to ignore cyclists and sidewalks.
Yep. So for everybody that's on, are there people on Zoom? No. Okay, great. So good. We can just focus here. So excellent point. And that is something that the steering committee is actively, and the city are actively talking about. We need to have really direct outreach and talk to all the neighbors that are there on Hull to also get them involved in the conversation. The goal is to improve that access for people from Newmark into the site. And we're working with the traffic engineers right now they are aware of that issue that you're describing, and they're helping us to design a way to improve that intersection to help alleviate that. Okay. Oh, am I going there? Oh, man. Okay, great. Sorry, most important slide, parking. So we did a parking analysis. We went out and did a count. We actually looked at the entire site, not just kind of down where you would park to put your boat in the water, but also we affectionately come to call the onion because it looks like an onion, this whole thing. But we've taken a total count of what is there today. And then we assessed what the library is required to provide in terms of zoning and for its use. And we're preserving all the parking that's there today and adding all the parking that the library needs. And so we will have a total of 13 ADA accessible spaces out there when we're done, 6 loading spaces, and 156 regular spaces to be shared between the library and the park. And that's an aggregate and a sum of the needs of the new library and what's there today.
Will there be EV parking, EV chargers?
Oh, that's a great question. Excellent question. So that hasn't been determined yet, but thank you for that comment. Yeah, definitely something we should talk about.
Definitely
Post-it worthy. Yes, get it up here. So the way that parking ties into the building is actually there's a really great opportunity on the site that because of the slope, we actually get to have a parking lot at both levels of the library. So on the left is the upper floor of the library, and we can have a parking lot right here so that if you know that you're just coming to use just go to, read a magazine in the adult area, and you pull up, there are ADA spots here and parking up here for you to access that. And then if you know that, say you're coming for a big community meeting, which is at the lower level, you can actually just drive down there and there's parking right outside of that area too. So there will be an elevator in the building, obviously. So once you're in the building, you can move up and down. But also, if you're mobility challenged, you can also just be driving to the level that you want to go to and go right in. And Charlie is, after we do the fly through, he's going to walk you through all the landscape design that we've been thinking of around this. As far as how the building works, if you were to arrive at that upper level parking lot, which you can see here in the bottom left corner, and again, this is the upper level and this is the lower level here on the right. At the upper level, you can park and you can come right up to the building and get under a covered area so that if it's raining, you can get under cover right away. You would come into the building and come right into a hub. The whole building is organized, the whole library is organized around a central space that connects you to everything. So that right when you walk in, you can see everywhere that you want to go. To the north will be the adults, to the south, the children's. Staff have direct access right near the front door and a book drop right where you would kind of walk in those front doors. Restrooms right away available for you when you're arriving, a small kind of self-serve cafe station for coffee and whatnot, study rooms, dedicated teen room. And then here, this big green area is actually outside. That's a rooftop that will look out over the lake that we'll show you views of. And then this white space here is actually where you can look down into the lower level and take a stair to go down to the lower level. And we can get into more detail of the experience of all that in the model that Nick will take us through. If you were to come down those stairs, you would arrive at the lower level lobby, which if, say, you had driven down to the lower level, you could walk right in. There's a main entrance down there as well. So you could park, there's an ADA spot here. You could get out, you could come right in these doors. And this big pink area here is the community meeting room that seats 200 people. So it's really big and it's subdividable. So you could have 2 smaller meetings also if you wanted. And it's got a really big kitchen that supports it. On the other side of this lobby are a media and collab space and a 12-person and a 24-person meeting room. So conference rooms that are available for people. Restrooms down here as well. And then right here, right, if you walked in these doors, and you'll see this in the fly-through, you would have a direct view to a seating area and the Friends library bookstore that would be right as part of that main entry that has storage immediately next to it. And we had understood from our last community meeting that was going to be a really great thing to be able to get storage and the Friends and all that right by the big community room, because they often will do these big sales there. And so we have that connectivity. And then really importantly, this is that 24/7 911 call center right here. And one of the great things about having it in this building is that there's a real efficiency. They're able to share some of the same services so that they're not having to build more than they would need to. So even there's the potential, and we're still talking about this, to actually use conference rooms or community meeting room even as training space potentially that could augment those folks, and even have access if they wanted, to the restrooms, custodial, like all the other components of the library. And then this green area is a courtyard that will be right off of the community room and be able, if you have an event in the community room, you could have it spill right out to the outside. And big doors that can open up so you can really connect those 2 spaces. And then this is staff down here at the lower level as well with their own book drop. So we're collecting books from kind of both levels, whichever's handiest for people. In terms of sustainability, there's a lot of strategies that we've incorporated here, from really great daylight to limit energy use on daylighting. It's a mass timber structure, which is fantastic from point of view of carbon sequestration, and it's a renewable resource. In terms of energy reduction, we have a really high efficiency mechanical system, which includes a radiant floor, which is really fantastic in environments like this because the floor is warm in the winter, rather than just like pumping tons of air through, which is also better from a health point of view, because we're able to deliver air and like take it right back out instead of just constantly recirculating around, especially in light of COVID, that's really important. Landscaping that is all native, which means you don't have to irrigate it as much. Really great air quality through the materials that we choose. It has ability for outdoor programming, opportunity for photovoltaics. We've designed a spot for those that can be incorporated into the building. Stormwater management on site, and then areas obviously for bike parking. That'll be part of the library.
Excuse me, would
Yes.
that be covered parking or is that open air parking?
It's open air,
Okay,
yes, but open for discussion.
good, good.
There are opportunities for cover, actually. in some spots.
There's room for it. So under the overhang that you walk into the building, there is plenty of room for bikes, but there isn't anything in the building at this time.
Right, just cover it out of the elements and out of the weather. 'Cause
Yeah,
more and
porch,
more
on the
e-bikes are coming into play, yeah.
Okay, Nick, you want to go over the pleasure? Yes, you have a question?
I'm just curious, would there be room, I mean, you're gonna have buses running through so people catch the bus, or maybe that's just not an important question?
Oh, super important. Yeah. So oh, thank you. So the question was, what about buses? And is there room for buses to come and drop people off? We have had preliminary conversations with the local transit folks, and they're very excited about expanding service to provide, service to the library. I think the details about where the drop off is and how that works and how the buses, how deep they come into the site, and how close they get to the library, that's all still got to be discussed. Am I right about that, Sammy?
But there are plans to have transit come to that area, yes.
And come all the way in, you think?
That's the hope, is that we can get them right as close as possible.
That's what we want to do. We'd like it to see if we can get the buses to come down in directly to the library and drop people off. But that's the goal.
But not big buses.
I don't think so. I don't think they're
No, I've
No,
heard
the
some
local
buses.
ones, the local little buses.
I think it's the local smaller buses.
Yeah, small buses.
Is there any idea on how frequent they'll be arriving there?
Not, it's too early to
Oh.
tell that at this point.
The one thing it was very well received that the library was going to be out here by transit, and they really they were excited about it. Okay. So Nick, so now we have a three-dimensional model of what I just kind of talked you through. And so hopefully you can recognize some of the familiar things that I was just talking about. Yeah, let me help orient. So right now, yes. Don't get queasy if you can. So this is Newmark out here. This is the community college. This is the lake. This is where the current parking is when you drive down to the park and fish. And this is there's Hull Street right there. That's that onion of parking. And then this is where the new parking is. And then this is how the building kind of sits on that edge of the park in that location. So these are the lakes, and the ocean is off, the top of the screen there. Okay. Good question. Thank you.
There's no admission for this dress.
Okay, so you can pause right there, Nick. So one of the things you're seeing here, this is where the current parking lot is. We are restriping that parking lot and expanding it a little bit and creating a one-way loop. I'm stealing Charlie's thunder. Okay. A one-way loop that allows, so when you'll come down the hill, we're changing where that road is. We're moving it over a little bit to go on the other side of the restrooms and whatnot. So the road is coming down because it got us more efficiency with parking. Come down and you can drive a loop around this way, which means that you can drop off. If you're going to drop somebody off, the passenger is on the library side when you go to drop them off. This then is that lower level. That is the front door at the lower level. And you can see the whole, we'll get more into detail on that in the fly through. But this is the overall roof form is very simple. It's just one simple sloped roof. That's a metal roof, so it'll be long lived. And just does a really simple job of shedding water. And you're seeing here, this is that outdoor terrace right off in the main library space where you can go outside and have a view looking out over the lake. And then this is the courtyard at the lower level that would be right off in the meeting room where you could have events. So you can kind of spin around, Nick, a little bit more. We're going to spin around the whole building and then we'll go inside to understand how it's organized. So then this is looking back toward Newmark and toward parking. And so we've kind of nestled the building right in. It has this shape because it's following, there's a ridge that is in that spot. And so the shape of the building is just trying to follow that topography. And so this is what your arrival would be like. As you come in there, we've modeled the, the saw blade sign. So as you would come in, this is that upper level parking. So you could park and you could get out of your car and go right to this sidewalk here that would be covered. And here's that structure kind of coming out and providing this really beautiful kind of play of light and shadow. And this then is the staff area kind of right at the front door, and a book drop would be right there. So you can kind of move in, Nick. And that's the road kind of going down to the lower level parking. So as you would kind of come into the front doors, you would arrive at the central space of the library that would have lounge seating. It would have new arrivals for books. It would have a service point where Sammy and her staff are there to answer any questions that you might have. And right away from this point, you can kind of spin around and understand all the different parts of the library. So this is looking down into the adult wing of the library. And if you were to kind of go and look out this way, you can see that is that outdoor terrace out that way. And then if you look there, you can see that's the kids area right off of that main central hub. And then kind of looking to your right, we have the study rooms. This is the entrance back into the staff area. And then this is the teen room, which is right by the service desk. And it has really great daylight and connection to the park as part of that experience. And it's also really, it's there for, so there's good interaction between the service desk and the teen area. And then like kind of looking down at the far end, Nick, maybe we can walk down through the adult space. So the way that the roof is shaped, it really creates this very long, beautiful horizontal view of the lake. And then on the other side, it really opens up so you can see up into the tree canopy. So you're getting like both forest and lake, and the architecture itself is kind of celebrating those two kind of characters of the park. And so as you walk down, you're getting these really phenomenal views out to the forest. We probably won't have 24-foot tall pieces of glass. There's going to be mullions and things in there as we design it, but right now that's what we have. And then creating a destination here at the end of the adult space that would be really quiet and a kind of like remote little place where you feel like you're totally immersed in the forest. And then seating all along the lakeside edge. And then kind of going back the other way, Nick, maybe we can kind of run down to the kids area. And all of this is just at the preliminary stages of design, but just this idea of doing some playful things in the kids area, actually creating a way to kind of tunnel through and crawl through all the bookshelves, we thought could be really fun. And oh, okay, we're gonna do it. Okay, so here we get to crawl through. just kind of a sense of discovery. And that when we get to the end, this idea of incorporating some things that kind of tie to the local story of, a fishing boat that you can go kind of be in to read, a whale shape of bookshelves kind of on the back with the parabolic lens from a lighthouse as a big eye in it. And then they have a view kind of down into the courtyard and out to the lake as well. And we'll be working on developing all of this and working with Sammy and her staff to make something really great for kids here. And then they also get really great views kind of up and out into the forest, looking the other way. So Nick, you want to go outside? Okay. So then this is an outdoor terrace that the really fantastic thing about it at this level is that it's secure. So you don't have to worry about, you can just go grab a book. You don't have to check it out even. You can just walk right out there with it. You could come out here and have lunch. You could meet someone, just have lunch at the library in this really fantastic spot where you'd have this great view out over the lake. And the way this is oriented, we use the building to protect it from the north winds. So we created the roof slope, and that back wall there is creating a portion of that outdoor area that if it's windy, you can kind of go shelter there, but it's getting all direct south light. So the whole terrace faces south, but is you have a big wall behind you protecting you. And then that actually has a view down into the stairwell and down into the lower level. So you're getting to kind of see everything from that point of view. And then if you look off the other side of the terrace, you have a view down into the courtyard where there could be events going on, that sort of thing. Okay. And so Nick, can we walk in from the lower level? Okay, thank you. So if you had arrived at the lower level, there would be a walkway that would receive you. So if you parked, there's a way to just, if it's raining, you can just run right from your car right up and get underneath cover on the park side. Or if you're
Covered because they're so high, how long do they really help deflect the rain from raining on them if the wind's blowing from outside?
Yeah, no, that's a good question.
So like here, even in this building, it's raining.
Totally. Yep. So that's a really great point. And I think we need to refine exactly how long and how deep it is and exactly the height. We're still playing a little bit with like exactly the roof slope that we want to have to accomplish that. But good, yeah, good point. And our hope too is that people that are just using the park, if you're fishing and it starts pouring rain, you can scamper under there and kind of get under cover, which you can't really do right now when you're out there. So then this would be the main doors down at that level if you've arrived at the lower level. And so as you come in, the stair is right there, kind of welcoming you up to the upper level. You can see right away you have a direct line of sight to the Friends Bookstore. That's part of that lobby. And off to your left will be the community meeting room that then has a really big set of doors that can open up. You can have an indoor-outdoor connection out to that south-facing courtyard for outdoor space. So if you have an event here, you could easily imagine opening this up and it could spill out and you could use both. And this would have gates potentially that could secure it. So that if you want to have, if there was a private event where someone wanted to rent the space out, it could be secured for that. You don't have to pass through here to kind of get into the library. There's a separate way to do that, but you could also just leave it open and have people to be able to move through there during the day. And then on the other side there, you're seeing the media lab and kind of on the north side and the conference rooms off to the right that also have views kind of up into the forest. Of course, yes, thank you, Rob. So also right when you walk in, that's the elevator is right there. And so it's immediately accessible and right off of this main lobby. And it puts you right where the top of the stairs are. So that our goal for this was universal accessibility, where your experience, if you're mobility challenged, is the same as if you're not. And so starting and ending your journey at the same spot was really important. And then this will also allow us after hours Sammy and her group will be able to close off just this area right here with a rollout gate, and the whole library, this whole lower level, and the bookstore could be closed so that you could rent this out after hours and not have to worry about having to have security for the whole library. And then Nick, if you just came in the lower level, you could also take the elevator or the stairs and just arrive back up here at the kind of center of the whole thing.
Can you show the bookstore?
Of course, yes. I don't know how you did this, but you managed to get the same color stack of books in every stack. It's kind of amazing. Very curated, Friends Bookstore. And we have not, this is just us trying to start to get the pieces and parts in there. But really front and center, really important part of the
And
experience.
where's the extra storage for the Friends Bookstore?
It is right. There's actually a door in the Friends Bookstore. Is it modeled? It's probably not. But there's a door in the plan that happens right there that connects right to the storage area.
That's all storage.
Yes, and that's the hallway that goes down to the 911 call center and provides access into the meeting room if you've subdivided it.
Did I hear you mention a coffee shop somewhere?
I should be really clear about that. So it's not a coffee shop. It's a self-service coffee kind of vending spot. Sammy, is that accurate? And that is up here. That will be right in this spot, right there. Yep. Okay. Sure. Yeah. And so staff are here all day, and this is their workplace. So we wanted to make sure that they were always in a really great mood. And so created really nice views and good daylight for them kind of out into the forest. I will say one of the things that is important to note about this is that this is a forested site. And so it's pretty shaded and dark. And so we really worked hard to maximize the ability to kind of get daylight into the library. And that's in the shape of the library by getting the main reading rooms to have glass on 3 sides. And then really.
Oh man, I really like can you do the thing where the daylight changes?
Oh, sure.
I'd like to see that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Is that sunlight now?
This is moving towards sunset here. It's kind of getting later in the day. Yeah, right. And so our hope also was through the color and materiality of the building to help it really become background for the park, so that when you're in it, you just really feel like it's kind of integrated and it's not jumping out as like this kind of other object.
Oh, thank you. That's cool.
Great. Yes, of course. Yeah, super important. Thank you, Sammy. So one of the things that was really important too is to really preserve the trail system that's out there now and really integrate it with the experience of kind of arrival. So this almost feels like a trailhead. And so we've actually preserved we realigned them, but the ways that you can walk through the park are still there today. This one kind of moves around the edge of the library, but they all would start, this would become kind of the trailhead and the starting point for kind of moving out into the park.
Is that a mixed use bicycle and
Yes.
walking?
Yes, currently, it's wide enough to drive a vehicle down.
Okay,
The service vehicles drive down it currently.
so mixed pedestrians and bicycles.
Correct. And most of it's paved.
Good.
So I think with that, I'd like to have Charlie talk to us about the site and the design of the site and landscape. And we can come back to this too, if you have questions.
So I'm just going to wave my arms a lot because my pictures don't move. I think David did an excellent job of yes, thank you. David did an excellent job of walking us through the site and how it's organized. I'll just take you through a few more of the details. And please stop me if you have any questions. So one of the things that was communicated to us from day one and that we brought as our sensibilities is the sense that we are in a special place and that the building and what we create there needs to respond to that. So nature first, culture second, and the ecology and the environment are key, right? So what makes this place special? The water, the trees, the landforms below, the story that they tell is something that we're trying to emulate and reflect in the landscape. So we're going to go to these four basic ideas, right? So there's the upper arrival and its parking. There's the lower arrival and the parking, then the community courtyard that David showed us, and then we'll go back up onto the terrace. So that if we think about this upper space, as David said, it's the most convenient. It's going to be the place where everyone here wants to park. If they're going to go into the reading room and you're going to want to park on the lower level if you're going to go to those community events. It also has a service and loading space. So when we're exchanging books between locations or any other types of services, you can see it there, number 18 in the upper left-hand corner. That'll be the function that you have. And then these two views below on the right give you the idea of it's very important, this concept of wayfinding, like how do we know where to go? And part of that is if you've already been there, you know where to go the second time. If you don't know, you need to be able to see where you're going to go. And so the architecture is very intentional and the landscape echoes that intentionality so that as you approach the building, you can see the front door, right? And that was my experience here. I did not park in the parking lot and I couldn't find the front door. I got here eventually. And then this ability to walk under the overhang, I think is really key, and that replicates itself or repeats itself throughout the design. So our lower space and the idea of having that lower space, the big move here is twofold. One is its efficiency and its sensitivity. So the idea of the parking being next to the water, why would we do that? Why would we put parking there and not the building? Well, it's pretty basic from the standpoint that the building can take advantage of the topography and it can step down, whereas the parking can't really be on the side of the slope. That and the building has to be at minimum 50 feet back from the water's edge, whereas the parking can get closer. So those two things have together really helped us establish the organization of the site. Secondly, David, I think did a nice job of explaining the loop. So this counterclockwise loop, if anytime you ever go to a hotel or you go to a place of convenience like the airport, it's always going to be a counterclockwise loop so that your passenger can get off. So that when the transit shuttle pulls up, it's hopefully going to pull up right in front of the lower loop and let people out right there. And then it'll be a hop, skip, and a jump to get under cover. We're still working on the geometries, but the intent will also be that the exasperated fisher person who comes down, makes the wrong turn, will be able to take their vehicle and their trailer through the parking lot. And you can see the accessible parking is the closest to the front door. Number 6 is the entry, and then that dashed line is the overhang. So one could imagine directly to the right of the entrance would be enough room for 20 bikes under cover. And I think right there, I guess you could use a laser too. And then the community courtyard. So the drawing that you're going to see here is very illustrative in its form giving. The idea of landforms and dunes, not literal dunes, but these kind of mounded conditions, gives us some material, some substance to put our plants in. It gives us the ability to subdivide the space without totally breaking it up, so that if there was a larger group using the main space where you can see E, so let's say there's an after-school program happening and the kids are out there, or there's a craft session, but you want to come out and be in that same space and share it, there's the opportunity to do that. At the same time, if there was a reception, if there was a poetry reading, or if there was a private reception, they could come out and they could occupy the whole space. So it's not a fully baked space, but the concept is there. And that's part of what you get to do with us, is to talk about how you envision that coming together. The lower right image shows what it looks like if you walk along the face of the building undercover. I do hear what you're saying from that ability to have protection from the rain, especially when it comes horizontally. What I would suggest is that overwhelmingly, the predominant wind will be out of the north, and the building will shed that wind from us. So we should be, I think, in a good space. And then up under the roof terrace.
Is that true predominantly from the north? I know out on the bay, it's half the season it's from the north and half the season it's from the south.
I can show you it's science. So yes, the windrow.
Well, it's different here than where I live up on up in the.
Fair enough. So our input from the community that both live adjacent to the park and work in the area have suggested that it's from the north, and then the information that we have from the windrows and the data is what I'm saying. Yeah, and then the forest too is on that side.
Charlie.
Yeah, please.
And also, the other thing that Charlie and I were talking about as we were working on this was, it was kind of an epiphany for us too. We got all the data about where the wind's coming from, and we figured out that it's really different in the summer than it is in the winter. And so what we started to do is think about how we would create these event spaces or places where you wanted to hang out, really thinking primarily that you're only going to be doing that in the summer, like when you're going to go hang out outside. And that's why the north. But to your point, and why this thing, this is east facing, basically, like that whole covered area that you're mentioning, that kind of faces east toward the lake. And so it's not going to protect you from everything, but it will protect from kind of west, the kind of west southwest mostly. But if you get an east wind and it's raining, you're out of luck. I think. Yeah, right. Yeah, totally. Park on the upper side. So.
Anyone have a jacket here? Sorry,
So, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. No, I think it's it's a yes and. I think the idea of being able to design for life is really important, and like that convenience and that safety and that protection. We have a term that we use. It's called outdoor comfort. So you'll be outside if you're comfortable. Otherwise, you're going to be inside. So this building is creating and reinforcing that notion of outdoor comfort. If you can be dry and in the sun, you want to be outside, right? I want to be outside if I can be those things. And that's what this building helps you do. So that is actually, I guess I skimmed over the upper space. So what you're seeing, again, that's a moment in time, and these ideas of the dunes on that roof structure. Again, it gives us the ability to put soil so that we can put some small trees, grasses, maybe whether it's salal or ferns. We haven't really figured that point out, but also to create some division in the space so that there might be like the interior of the building has a definitive children's space. We could create a little cluster for the kids to be, so that adults can have a little bit more peace on the other side. And then I neglected earlier to say that the landscape will have this series of features. We're working with local tribes to explore the idea of not only a native plant walk, but a native plant walk that utilizes their frame of reference to interpret using how those plants were used by local tribes and what their languages are for those local plant materials. So it's pretty exciting to be able to make that connection as well. So that's what we have. Anything else?
Any other questions?
Well, thank you for your presentation.
I have a question. These guys know I ask questions all the time. Do you have the potential for a really large earthquake where we live? Is this building, is that taken into consideration with this building?
That's a softball.
I know it is.
Yes, so this building is designed, that thing that we put up earlier about one of the goals of this being available to the community as a center for communications and information requires that the building be designed to a level that in the event of an earthquake, this building is operational after that earthquake. And it's being designed to the big one, Cascadia. So that's currently how the building is being designed. So it'll be there.
Could you go back one image too, please? I'm sorry. All the way to the plan. Thank you. So the lower parking lot is also being designed for emergency response. It has, number 13 is a small building that will have a generator in it and storage capacity. And then the parking bays are set up to be able to house emergency response tents, so that if we needed to create shelters or medical response, those bays are adequately sized to hold them.
It's also got a really large kitchen in it, so supplies and ability to cook for staff that are in the building during an event.
Is the building solar powered? Is there battery power, generator power available at the building?
Yeah, so the building is designed right now to be solar ready. We need to identify the funding to get the solar panels to be part of the project, but the roof is designed to receive them. And they will contribute to the building performing well after an event when the electricity is cut off.
And it can be plugged in to a generator.
Right, okay.
Have you done a thorough geological study? I had no idea that this property here in our parking lot would have sinkholes, which I actually saw. So have you done that kind of study?
Yes, so we've done a geotechnical report. They've gone out and we've gotten borings on the different locations on the site, and we're designing the foundations because of what's happened with this building with special care to make sure that we don't we don't end up in the same spot.
Are you going down to bedrock with piles, or just a perimeter foundation, or a slab?
They're aggregate piers. They're not sure exactly how deep, because they've done preliminary borings, but they're gonna do aggregate piers, which I believe they drill down and then fill with gravel, basically like rock. And that forms the support for the building.
This not only met the needs from a site perspective, but it also had the best geotechnical report.
Of the sites
Of
within
the
the
sites,
park.
thank you.
What kind of soil is there? Excuse me. Is it clay mix, it's just sand, or?
Are you by chance a geotechnical engineer?
Yeah, I mean, everything on this peninsula seems to be sand. Liquefaction, you guys don't know this. I'm just curious if there's any real soil under this building.
Yeah, so the area that we're building on this ridge was one of the better conditions. And our geotechnical, when they wrote the report, they said based on the soil conditions that they're finding in this spot, these are the kinds of foundations that we recommend to deal with that. So that's the, of course.
I noticed a boat launch. Is there going to be congestion from pickup trucks and trailers in the library parking lot?
Yeah, the boat launch is there today, and it'll have a kayak option as well that the city is already developing.
Cool.
The maneuvers necessary to launch your boat do not require you to go through the loop, right? So if I drove my boat down, I would pull in, back up, and then pull out that way. I wouldn't go through the loop. If I was naive and I made a mistake and I went through the loop, I could get back out, but David might have to get out and help me.
Have we run any numbers on the amount of boats that launch out of there? I don't see that much activity for boat launching.
I've only seen canoes and rowboats.
Yeah.
But somebody else could tell me more.
I've seen very little there, one or two little trailers, but that's about it.
By statute, boats with motors are not allowed.
Right.
There you go. Yeah, I think kayaks, human-powered watercraft are what we see. I don't even think, people really don't sail on that. By the time you get to one end, You have to just turn around and go back and forth.
This is more directed to the city, but what happens if the bond measure fails?
We'll have to reevaluate, get together and come up with a plan and decide how to go out and do it again. The bottom line is, if we don't pass this bond, this library will not exist in 4 or 5 years. So, you know, it's unfortunate that this wasn't done in 2014, given the time frame, but it wasn't. So it's on us to get this done, and I think we can. But we have to convince the citizens that this is necessary, not just because it's a library that's going to have books, because it's going to be evacuation center, because it's going to be a 911 call center. It's going to fill a need, many needs, besides just the library. And I think it's important that we tell people that. Because we don't have an evacuation center. I don't think there's one anywhere in Coos Bay or North Bend. So, that I am aware of.
Walmart?
Well, that's down the street, so that can take care of the overflow, or maybe we can take care of their overflow. But either way, we're, like we said, they'll have the kitchen, it's a 911 center, it fills all kinds of needs, so.
I have to say, I was skeptical because I couldn't see what was wrong with the Ocean Boulevard site, but you've convinced me.
Thank you. And it was a toss-up, I mean, you know, between the council, this is split vote, so, yeah.
Good luck selling it though.
Well, actually, we've had quite a few people looking at it, and I think at least at this standpoint, when we do sell it, that money's going to be used to offset costs for the library.
Yeah. And specifically the 911 center, because the city will be paying for that, so.
Is there any possibility of, in cooperation with that possible solar power, of using small wind turbine installations, like vertical turbines near the building or the lake?
I think that is a strategy that we're working with a mechanical engineer who's been doing all the energy analysis. Their recommendation was solar on this site. I think it's a really good question, and it makes me want to go back to them and ask that and see what potential there is. With the amount of wind that you have here, it seems like that could be something really cool.
Well, that vertical, turbine stuff is pretty interesting technology. It's not like big windmills going around.
Yeah, helical farm.
And if nothing else, I mean, it'd be a really cool thing to have as part of the library for people to see.
Yeah, it looks neat too.
And understand that is to help educate about sustainability and what can be done. Thank you, that's a great recommendation.
Is there a certain amount of passive solar heating if the sun hits? Did you take that into consideration?
Yes, so nowadays the computers are really good at modeling energy use in buildings. So we provide the model that you all saw today to our mechanical engineers, and they run it through a model and they calculate the amount of both what you're referring to is the benefit of having warmth from the sun. They also see that it's both. That's a benefit sometimes, and then other parts of the year that's a problem. So, but they run a model that calculates that throughout the year and shows what our energy use is, and then they design the mechanical system around that with our goals for energy use.
Well, there doesn't seem to be a lot of southern windows going on there. I'm not quite sure if I really understand it, but it looks like everything's more on that, east-west rather than the south.
It is, and that was largely driven by the kind of positioning of the site and the other site forces, like where parking needed to happen, where access was going to happen. So what we've done is we've worked hard to kind of make the best of that. We also, typically east and west glass is hard to deal with because you get a lot of low, hot sun in the summer. Because the site is so heavily forested, it's actually, that does a lot. That's part of the modeling that they do, and that's doing a lot for us in terms of shading that kind of like heat gain.
A lot of trees in the way going south.
A lot of the trees in the way, yeah.
David, you might mention the passive cooling on the plan as well.
Yeah, so in our last steering committee meeting, and we're when we go to the next phase of the design, if you all pass the bond measure, one of the things that is a strategy we think we're gonna be pursuing with this, because it has real economic benefit and also is really sustainable, is to actually look at, actually you eliminate almost all of the cooling system. You only have cooling, like air conditioning that you would think of for like the big community meeting room, like the things that are gonna generate a lot of heat. The climate is so temperate here that if you use natural ventilation, we call it a dedicated outdoor air system that is just providing fresh air into the building, even when you can't open the windows, it's just providing fresh air, that we can control the temperature in a very comfortable range without having to go into providing a big air conditioning cooling tower for the building. And so that's currently the goal, which also has really great benefits from like health and well-being to kind of get fresh air kind of moving through the building. So
So there
that's
needs to be a
the-
lot of air exchange from the inside and the outside.
Yes.
They have mosquitoes out there?
You guys don't have mosquitoes here, do you?
Yeah.
One of the things I was wondering is, I've been to libraries before that had a rentable recording studio. Could that possibly be in addition to the library?
Right now, there's a media and collaborative space that I think is envisioned as serving lots of different uses and having lots of different equipment available. I know that kind of space you're describing is very specific. It needs to kind of be designed for acoustics and whatnot. It was not part of our original program. So right now, that specific program is not in this.
But it could be potential at some point.
This building is being designed to be very flexible. And so, and we're just done with schematic design that's kind of located in the big blocks.
Well, to what extent are there spaces for adjacent buildings to be created? If somebody wanted to do like a studio, that kind of thing that was dedicated, is there amounts of space that something could be incorporated on the property but not part of the library?
Boy, I mean, I would say yes, there's a lot of area out there, but it's all part of the park and figuring out, you know.
There's constraints.
There's constraints probably around some of that. But I think, thank you for your comment about the studio though. I think that's we're seeing that happen in a lot of libraries. So I think that's a conversation that we could have.
I'd just like to interject some more. With the amount of media and the way media is changing, it seems to me like that's something that would be really a good thing for our children to be able to really take advantage of. How do we create this? You know, people doing their TikToks and this and that, but there's an awful lot of wonderful stuff on the internet because people have the space to do that. And I'm really impressed with some of, like, there's a thing called Dust, it's a science fiction short thing, and I'm really amazed with the quality of their product. I think that's where young people may be able to scrape a living in the future.
Yeah, super important part of culture today, for sure.
Not so much for me.
Yes.
Is the play area, there was a play area currently there, is that completely gone now?
No, the playground is still right here.
And playground remained
19,
there?
right
Okay.
here. There's an exercise space right here. You
Okay.
can see, right now, we're proposing to put parking spaces on half of it and slide it back.
Okay.
So that's part of the cost consideration, is just sliding it back a few.
And will there be pathways to get to that play area?
Yes, currently, that's what this crosswalk is for.
That's what that
to get to there.
crosswalk to be able to get into that area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Currently, there isn't a crosswalk, or there's a
Right.
striped crosswalk. So it's pretty loose, flexible space today, and I
Yeah.
think that's how we envision it being. There'll just be more people.
Right.
This is probably more a question for Sammy. Have we ever scheduled a walk? Has a walkthrough of the property ever been scheduled yet?
We've done some, and if, yeah, we'll schedule some more. That's if people are interested, and we can set them up individually, or we can set them up with groups.
Another thing was, you went through and showed the adults area and the children's area, but I saw something like a teen area. What's specific to that?
Yeah, great question. Nick, you want to pull the slide through back there? So the fly through is still a little rough. We just had a meeting. We're starting to shift our thinking from, as we move out of this phase of design and we go into the next phase of design, we'll be starting to get really specific about what's going on in the different spaces. So I think we're envisioning providing, like, this is showing a few different kind of ways of meeting in there. The idea is that we're providing a really broad variety within there, a place for people to get together in fairly good-sized groups of teens, provide opportunity for some gaming. That's a really attractive thing. Provide, study spaces, booths, kind of create a real variety in here. We actually had a concept for, you're seeing it modeled in a kind of way that just the modeling software is amenable to, but our goal was, an inspiration was to actually try to create kind of a driftwood fort at the back of this space that teens could feel like they were kind of in a space that was really theirs, and would have a little suggestion of kind of being able to kind of huddle together and have that kind of romantic, like that relationship to kind of what you experience kind of out on the coast. So then we were starting to think about how the back kind of corner of that can start to have that sort of vibe and feel. But yeah, I think we're hopefully get some focus groups where we can work with teens specifically to understand what they want their space to do.
2 quick observations. It's acoustically separated, right? So it has, because the teens, that way you don't have to tell them shush all the time. And then that, I think the idea of being able to have your back to the wall. So so you're watching other people, they're not watching you as much.
That's an interesting point, acoustical separation. I know where I came from in Southern California, the old library was replaced with a new library. And one of the things I was disappointed in is that, we're not in the librarian thing anymore, there's a lot more talk and stuff. But kids, I like the fact that they can be noisy, but is there a way to acoustically separate that noise so they can be a lot louder and it can be a lot quieter on the other side of it?
And that's what we're planning on doing, both for the teens and for the kids area. Mm-hmm.
And the idea is the end of the adult section, using probably the area in the distance would be the quietest, so creating a nice quiet area.
Is there like a magazine type of thing like we have here? Is that section back there?
Potentially, yeah.
Did you show the magazine center, or did you?
We don't have exact locations for things like that yet.
Oh, okay.
But, it will be in the adult area, and probably more likely back by the reading area, because it lends itself to that kind of activity.
I just want to tell my favorite story. This new library was in Ramona, California, wonderful library. The new one that they designed, but they put in a fireplace, and then they had the opening ceremony, and they lit off the fireplace. Well, you have to light it off beforehand to burn all the extraneous things that have been used to produce it, and they had to evacuate on opening day the entire library and air it out for 2 hours before they could continue. So I hope somebody will be.
We'll make sure we air everything out before.
There's always something, no matter what.
Well, it's gonna be beautiful, can't wait.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming, and we'll stick around if you want to chat.
Oh, and sticky notes.
And yeah, if you have any comments or anything you saw today, if you look, we've just had some little post-its. You can write whatever you want, put it up on the images up here that represent my presentation. We have little hearts that you can stick on things that you really like. And yeah, we look forward to.
What's the color code on the postage?
Yeah, so whatever you want. Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Whatever you want. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
You guys have on today and you want to repeat it.